Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you're awake as I am. At least that's what I pretend. So yesterday we had a great day and also a great evening. Some people literally said Dubrovnik was on fire. You will hear some stories later about that. So welcome to the start of the second day. And I think we have a very interesting topic to kick off with, and it's related to purpose and how do we support that through digital means. But before we start, I would like everyone to introduce themselves. You know most of the people, but maybe Davidek.
Davidek, Herron. I'm with Roche, and happy to be here.
Hi, Cyril Mandry from MSD Omnichannel, and also very happy to be here.
And Samir Dahbane from Nestlé, Global Medical Operation Lead.
Dirk, Abeel, I have a double head. I am the founder of Omnichannel Limited, and I'm also heading up the go-to-market at Pitcher. So let's get started. Purpose, a big word. Can you share with us what do you see as the key purposes for which HCPs would like to engage with your organizations? And then also, what is the link with digital?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah. Cyril.
So for me, the purpose of digital is really to enable people to transform our commercial models. In pharma in particular, we really want to go from less transactional relationships to building proper relationships. We are still very transactional focused, product focused. So, and digital, by all the tools it provides, CX, data, MarTech, really can enable us to do this. I think yesterday, Samir, you talked about moving from product launches to launch experience. I think it's a good example, a good analogy of what digital can help achieve. So that's the purpose I see for digital in pharma. In that way, we'll be addressing HCP needs in a much more relevant way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so purpose, I think you have to even take a step back and understand I mentioned it yesterday, your company's purpose, right? So for example, at Roche, we have ambitions by 2030 to provide 3 to 5 times more medical advances at the cost of society, right? We also want to double our innovations in lower middle income countries. So how we do that, the purpose for our customers is sometimes led and accelerated by, let's call it digital or other means, right? But the purpose is ultimately to drive better patient outcomes. How we do that, depending on what spectrum within the value chain you work in, is where we're focusing.
Yeah, thank you.
Probably just to build on that, I think that in every relationship-focused business, which what we are, very much people-based, I think that digital has to play a role in enriching the relationship. And I was saying yesterday that, the core of relationship that we have built within the last few decades is conversation. Building meaningful conversation with HCPs, which we have been great at doing in person with HCPs. Now, how do we move that online? And having, this omni-channel, this new conversation experience. I was saying that omni-channel is actually a new conversation experience. I think that digital has a key role to play, and that should be one of the sole purpose of digital, enhancing the conversation with HCPs to build for them meaningful experiences, and not only focusing on product information. And I think that there is a second element that I really wanted to articulate is, digital is also offering a very strong access to information. I think that there is already a lot of information available online. Everyone can access it, but is this information qualitative enough to be read? I think that we have, as an industry, as experts, with all our MSL teams, our medical affairs, our legal, our regulatory, I think that we have a role to play on providing qualitative information to not only HCPs, but also payers and patients. And I think that digital can, extrapolate this capability, and I think we have a role to play in that.
So let's dig a bit deeper in this aspect, because obviously we want HCPs to come to us and our patients also through the HCPs to talk to us. So are all the channels, do we use the same channels depending on the reason why they would reach out to us? And I give an example, okay, I want to be informed about the most recent updates about what you're bringing to the market, the advantages, you said value, but also continued education, having access to content which I like whenever I want it at whatever time. So if you look at digital there, do we use the same channels across all these purposes, or is there a different kind of approach needed?
you need a different kind of approach. For me, take a step back. For me, I was talking about commercial models, and
Yep.
I firmly believe we need to embrace customer lifecycle management in our industry. I don't think we do yet. Many other industries do, which is not only about, so it's about adjusting your content, your channels based on where you are in your relationship with the customer. It's whether you know that customer already or you're starting to know the customer versus you're already engaging them and nurturing the relationship. It means different channels, different content. So I think a customer if you start communicating with a customer, the interest is much more of the patients to start with, then medical education comes in and so on. So it's really managing the customer life cycle, which we need to focus on. And we're pretty good at managing the product life cycle, so we need to start moving to customer life cycle as well.
Yeah, Davidek?
Can I just I have a reflection on the question you asked. We don't want HCPs coming to us, right? We want HCPs spending most time with their patients and everything, right? We want to make sure when HCPs need some type of information, service, whatever, it's easy and accessible for them to get it, right?
Yeah.
So I think the old mindset of let's continue to push, and have them want to come to us. I mean, think about that. One HCP wants to come to us at Roche, wants to go to Pfizer, wants to go to Nestlé. Like, look in this room alone, there's so many companies. That's almost impossible. So I think the question is, how do we make sure HCPs don't need to come to us, but still have all the information that they can do to really drive better outcomes for their patients? It's a total mental shift.
That's a
and
great
people
point.
get stuck there, but that's how we have to start looking at it, right?
It's a great point, and a great point to as a reflection for everyone in the room here. How do we change the paradigm? So great that you're bringing that up, Davidek. Samir?
No, I agree. I think that, when we have this mix of channels, we also need to think about mechanism that, again, put the HCP at the center when it comes to choice. Because, again, the more offering you have, the more you need to put, the key decision maker on how to engage is the customer. And I think that depending on what you're offering through the different channels, you are referring to CME, for instance, I think that the way Harvard University used to deliver education 20 years back is totally different from today. I think all of us can go online and have a Harvard certificate. That's a fact. Even though it is extremely prestigious, now all of us can have a Harvard certification. I think that it's also about, giving the possibilities to all HCPs to access the information. And I think that education is the minimum standard that we need to provide to most HCPs. Medical education must be accessible by every single HCP, independently of the value that we associate to them, independently of the classification, A, B, C, and D. I think that medical education should be a standard and at the highest value as Harvard University is doing. So providing that is key through the channels of choice of those HCPs.
I would like to come back to what Davidek said. So would that then mean, if you want to achieve that they don't need us anymore, that you're also going to break down the boundaries between the different companies? And let's look at the three sitting here by bringing a combined offer which is much bigger than each one can do on themselves. And where are we in that strive? Because it's a bit related to what you were saying.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where we are, we have a long way to go, right? I think sometimes we get stuck on our internal mindset and processes that's preventing us. Like we get, sometimes even within our organizations, we get stuck in these silos and we feel like, oh, my predecessor might have done this, we need to do this to accelerate. And actually I had a lot of conversations last night with many of you, and I asked, why are we not partnering? And I get we have, and by partnering, I mean company to company, and no disrespect to our vendors and partners here, but they have different alternatives, motives, right? Obviously, they're driving a business, their goal is to almost divide and conquer in certain situations. Not all, but there is some that do that. And the response I received from many of you is, well, I can't make that call, my company, or I can't do that. You guys are all leaders. Everyone in this room has the ability to actually start that shift. Whatever reason why we're not doing it, I'm not sure. But what needs to happen as an industry is we need to come together collectively as one, even if we have competing quote unquote products. Remember, the goal, that's why we all work in healthcare, is to drive better patient outcomes. And if that's not your goal, then maybe you should rethink the industry you work in. But ultimately, to do that, one company alone can't do that, right? Three companies alone can't do that. But our goal is to really transform the healthcare systems And that looks different for every country, right? It is very complex and it's not an easy thing. If it was easy, we would have solved it, years ago. But you have to start having those conversations and start challenging why not.
It would be great that next year when we come back here, we could see some examples.
Share examples of when we partnered in and what we
So
delivered,
I keep
right?
that in the back of my head. That's good.
And I just want to come back to the first point you made. So it's this external partnership, I fully agree, but it's also internally. I think for me, one of the main challenges is how we get medical, sales, marketing, data, MarTech, all the functions to work together. Because I was talking about it's like keyword, customer lifecycle management. For this to work, you need all those organizations with internal to work together. A big word is also personalization, right? So to your point, is how we personalize through data and so on. It's internal collaboration and then the external collaboration.
I just want to help, visualize that, because yesterday, I think I wasn't the only one to take the example of the bank industry. And I think that they have done that greatly. Part of the financial services that are offered by banks today are actually very common and across companies. And I just want to refer to the ATM, right? When we all want to withdraw cash, we go to an ATM machine and we take cash, basically, right? And independently of the bank you actually from, whether it is Nestlé, Roche, MSD, you take cash, right? So I think that this is a very strong representation of what you are looking at, and I think that we need to also convey toward that. I mean, at the end of the day, our purpose is also patients, and sometimes all of us, we share the same patients. In my case, pediatric population, and I think that if we can build something specifically for pediatricians that is across therapeutic areas, it can be extremely beneficial for them. And I feel that today this is missing today, and I am very echoing what Davidek was saying yesterday. It would be great if we can partner towards some, this concept of bringing the ATM of the pharma industry for the benefit of not only the HCPs, but also the patients.
Yeah. So I have a quick question for the audience. Raise your hand. How many of you since yesterday have actually talked to someone else that's not within your domain and actually might have an idea and you're going to follow up with that after this conference? Raise your hand. Nice. See? That's where it starts. Nice.
Good fact check. So let's continue the discussion now. Before COVID, we saw already a kind of rep fatigue popping up. Yesterday, we spoke already about the transformation and digital fatigue. So what are you doing with some concrete examples to overcome that or to change this paradigm? Maybe let's start with Samir this time.
I can start. I think that, again, it goes back to the concept of HCP centricity and making sure that, first of all, we leverage the channels of interest for the HCP. I think that we need to stop pushing information in channels that are not relevant for HCPs. So I think that embedding the concept of personalization, right, leveraging preferences of HCPs before engaging with them is extremely key. And I think that we should not underestimate the power of targeting, right? I think that for the exact same event, there are certain types of HCPs that will be more than happy to participate and others won't be. And it is this order that are going to experience this digital fatigue. So I think it's one of the key elements that we need to put in place, quickly goes under the thought process. I think targeting is key, making sure that we do A/B testing for certain topic, for certain format, for certain conversations, and see how it resonates with certain audiences versus others. I think there's this concept of audience. Audience embeds the concept of reception. Are they receptive to what you're saying? And I think that we need to extrapolate that towards content, channel, and cadence, and find the best mix with specific audience to make it happen. And I just want to also, again, I like to give visualization, but I'm never tired of Netflix. I'm able to watch Netflix, Game of Thrones, 10 episodes, 10 hours in a row.
You have a lot of time, huh?
It's nighttime when the kids are asleep. And I think that it's mainly because I really appreciate the experience, right? I think the content is great, the channel itself, the streaming channel is great, and the cadence of delivery of each episode is great. I think that it's not only about the content, it's the mix, it's the whole experience. I think to avoid digital fatigue, we need to think about Netflix-based experiences also with HCPs.
It's interesting you said Netflix, right? So now put yourself in the provider's shoes. He has to go to 50 Netflixes to get the content that he or she needs, right? That's the reality, right? So that's kind of what we're struggling with.
It's interesting because Novartis mentioned the partnership with Evermed, and they claim they're releasing the Netflix of clinical education. I guess So I'm just commenting on the news, right? I think this is. I haven't checked it, but I believe this is what we need to aim for. There's much more innovative type of approaches, and it all starts from the customer, right? You need to really understand end-to-end the customer experience.
Let's dig a bit deeper into that, and I'll link it back also to what Davidek said before. We're talking about this audience. How many times do we actually involve them actively in what we think they are looking for? Because when I was at that side of we often say we know what they want. But do we really know what they want, and how do we get them better engaged?
Can I just comment on this? Right? Because I think it's a mistake we make. We can't just go to HCPs and say, what do you need, what do you want? They don't know, right? You need to go deeper than that, right? So,
but how do you involve them in getting there?
Well, yeah, there's different type of market research you can do, groups and so on, or data points you can get. But it's also understanding the systems in which you operate. I think we tend to focus very specifically on HCPs, whereas you need to start from the overall system, which is how you deliver patient outcomes, and you see what influences their choices. Because that will give you ideas which no one has yet.
Davidek? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a couple aspects from that. It's understanding the voice of the customer is one piece, and actually, unfortunately, a lot of times we look at some of our great marketeers, but we don't incorporate that voice of the customer, right? So that's even half the battle right there. But back to your original question around fatigue. Were you mentioning digital fatigue on the physicians or people fatigued in the fields and the offices? Like, what? Sorry, the question was.
It's at the end. It started physical fatigue, but now the digital fatigue in the new reality.
And I only bring that up is one of the learnings we've seen, and I mentor a lot of people outside of Roche, where we saw the greatest value for driving outcomes by stop doing things, right? Like literally there were certain things where like, all right, we're not gonna push out anything else. When they need to come to us, we're there. I mean, you'd be surprised, you can actually do a lot more with doing less. And we saw that during this pandemic, right? Sometimes it was just, we just had to be quiet and be ready and willing when they're able to come to us or they need anything. And that showed so much more of a partnership, trust, but also it actually benefited the organization's outcomes they were looking to drive.
Yeah.
So, different approach, but it works.
Yeah. Khalid, you want to add something? Or?
I think that was mostly covering most of the points.
So let's look then at the people. We already said people are, especially in our business, very, very important. Do you think, and it's for me also related to this fatigue discussion, do you think that our people have been educated properly to have this eagerness to become digital savvy, if I can use this buzzword, and also in helping HCPs becoming more digital savvy and seeing the value in interacting in such a way with their patients? Davidek, let's start with you.
Yeah. So you can see, and even before COVID, right, but healthcare providers were already moving in this space. Healthcare systems are moving in this space, right, specifically from operations, right? If you think about it, globally, and I think this might have been stated yesterday, but 50% of the population doesn't have access to healthcare when they need it, right? That's crazy. And there's such a large shortage of healthcare providers globally. It's insane, right? I was looking at this one example I was listening to where this physician was doing some work in Uganda, and literally people were walking 20 miles to see a physician for the first time ever, and probably the last. That's insane if you think about it. Like, if you look at it at scale. And how you mitigate that is by somewhat leaning into different ways of doing things, right? Technology, which is driving that. So maybe there's a pod they can rock up to and check their blood pressure, get some blood tests done remotely, right? And be able to get some access. But you have to think differently there. In regards to the people and how you come up with solutions like that is, we in this space always have to constantly be learning. What I've seen often too much is we have some stars come in, like they're ready in their game, but they stop investing in themselves. If there's anything you take away from this conversation is continue to invest in yourselves, be really crazy about it, right? Because the organizations, the leaders, you, but your peers and everyone else are looking at you to help solve some of these solutions. right? And I think how do you invest in people is make sure they invest in themselves and give them all the tools and resources to do that, which then gives you that outcome of all these amazing advances in medicine.
Great point. Cyril?
No, I completely agree. And I think it's a mindset shift. Shifting from sales to also customer success mindset is how I would phrase it. And that means medical education and so on. Completely agree.
Yeah.
Just probably to add on that, I think that we talked a lot about omnichannel transformation, right? And I think that when you refer to people, it's a fundamental element. I think that we are all people-based companies, and we need to invest very strongly on this evolution of skills, competency, role, and responsibility for our people. And we often talk about this concept of customer centricity, HCP centricity, patient centricity, but I think we need to extrapolate that to rep centricity, right? I think that we should not forget that it's the reps, the medical science liaison, the HCP-facing resources that are actually operating the business and activating most of the communication that we are actually creating. So I think that we have to be extremely clear on the vision that digital omnichannel is bringing, and being extremely clear on our mission and our actions. And usually when we include omnichannel, everything is reshuffled. The vision doesn't change much, but the mission and action can slightly be adapted. And we need to be extremely clear on that, but also on the size of the price, because the reps, they're extremely objective oriented, right? They have cycles, they have objective, they have bonus. I think that's extremely important for us to also understand that they need to understand how much they will be able to generate knowledge, within society, how much they will be able to, initiate and coordinate these patient outcomes, what will be their role in the full picture. And I think that just with that, we will be able to, strengthen the evolution of our traditional reps that are very resistant. I'm sure we all have some of them in our markets, to digital savvy reps. And I think that this can only be achieved through, this rep-centric mindset.
Let me bounce back this question also to the room here. I'm using your example with the hand raising. Which companies are really investing in helping healthcare professionals become better and more at ease in this digital space, in helping them to engage with their patients? Who is doing such initiatives? I see only a few hands. Yeah. It's something to think about, huh?
Yeah.
Because they're struggling exactly with the same things that our people are struggling with. Cyril, you want to?
No, I think that's where it all starts, right? How can we help them better manage our patients, right? It's customer needs.
Yeah. Last question that I want to ask. When you go to the exhibition hall, there are a lot of partners who are focusing on omnichannel transformation, technology. If there is one message you would like to give to them, what would it be? And I guide the discussion a bit. Do we need to go to very solid platforms, or do we need to go to solid platforms with a lot of open API approaches, allowing you to plug in and unplug whatever kind of solutions you are looking for?
So I'll jump in, and they probably heard me say this before, but we truly want to partner. We don't want to buy stuff from them, right? Help us solve some of these larger problems versus help us solve some of these tactical things we need to achieve, right? That's my advice.
Thank you. Cyril?
On the same page here, I think it's just innovative solutions we need, where there's a partnership makes total sense. But then there are also many areas in which we want to, it's more internal, teams, IT teams, and so on to build this. So it depends on what the need is and how innovative the solution is.
Yeah.
I think on the same line, totally aligned with what I said, but I think that what we are looking for is mainly, to build this ecosystem, strengthening the ecosystem to build experiences, right? Because we need to have an ecosystem to build meaningful experiences. But at the same time, I think that we also need to talk about maturity of each channels that we are deploying. I think that it's not, Dario was opening yesterday with that. Are we omnichannel mature? I don't think so. Otherwise, we will not discuss about digital fatigue today, for instance. So I think that it's very important for us to also embed, conversation, best-in-class experiences in every single channel that we are opening. I think that, for instance, social media, it has been touched upon in some conversations. We are still far from what we should do. I think that it's a very strong paradigm. Social media is a lot about moments. While we are talking about experiences, how can we match the two? It's a big question that I would love to hear from anyone that has a solution to make. So I think also vendors can provide a solution in that, not only technological, but I think on the thought process within the experience ecosystem.
Yeah, and can I just make one call out, right, to our partners there? The industry wouldn't be as advanced as it is without our partners, right? Because at the end of the day, we're scientific companies, right? We don't have the expertise, and that's why we need an ecosystem around us. The invitation is continue to build that ecosystem and help us continue to advance as an industry, right? And the more collaborations and points we can bring companies together as one, it's going to help us, right?
Yeah. Cyril, last words?
I was reflecting what Samir was saying. I think we already focus on own channels, which are really important. We need to build our own ecosystem, but we need to open to more paid to get the data as well, right? That's a huge data source from paid channels. Actually, maybe a question to the audience: who's really using paid channels in addition to the owned channels? If you could raise your hands. Paid meaning social media or paid advertising.
Only a couple. Yeah.
Not much.
Okay. So some food for thought and discussion for the coffee break later. With that, gentlemen, thank you very much. And let's continue the show, I would say. Thank you.